Welcome to the fourth and final episode of panel discussions that we are organizing for you to further your understanding on the module Religion and Culture and Society. The final episode is on a very somewhat, controversial topic of religion and politics. You may think the two things are very different, but in this episode we are going to see if there is actually a linkage between the two topics and how indeed it's manifested in the Sri Lankan context. So to introduce the panel, we have Professor Premakumara from the Department of Sociology, University of Colombo, Dr. Nirmal Ranjith Devasiri from the Department of History, University of Colombo, and of course our very own Dr. Anton Piyaratne from the Department of Social Studies at the Open University. So I'm going to start with Professor Premakumara. There are certain words now that we use quite regularly when describing certain movements and certain aspects of religion. We seem to throw these words around very casually: fundamentalism, extremism, in describing certain religious practices. What do these terms actually mean?
But when it comes to actually a term like, say, extremism and fundamentalism, it's not really, it has a kind of a religious connotations, but it's not really sometimes religious, but student might understand when you talk about fundamentalism that the religion is always come to our mind. But of course there are religious fundamentalism, religious extremism. So largely the religious fundamentalism is very much actually, they are very much concentrate on various aspects of religion. So the purity of religion and also actually theological aspect of religion, fundamentalists very much, so they are not really happy to change, right? They want to actually remain as a, for instance, say what the text, sacred text basically preached. So they were quite interested, and also they are basically strongly appear with this what the text, religious text says. So these are the sort of the fundamentalists. They are not happy with the change, so they want to remain religious as a kind of pure form. So that is what fundamentalists. So fundamentalists can create actually extremes, extreme positions. Fundamentalism is a kind of a extreme view of religion. So therefore the fundamentalist groups actually they are not really happy with religious modernities or the modernizing or changing of religion. So the largely religious fundamentalist groups can be actually sort of develop or manifest through different, say, ethno-nationalist movement and fundamentalist movement. Now there are all sort of, each and every religion you see, these fundamentalist groups are very much actually responding to what's really changing in the politics, also what's changing in the culture, what's changing in the society at large. So religious fundamentalism is something sort of a kind of a resistance to so what really going on within the religion, as well as actually what is going on the broader socio-political situation.
But don't you also find that the use of these terms is somewhat problematic, in the sense, how do different groups define various aspects, various parts of particular religions as fundamentalists or extremism? How objective are those labels in a way?
As we discussed, actually, so these are academic categories. Now academic, we use those categories to explain certain situations, right? It may not actually, now maybe fundamentalists did not aware about they are fundamentalists. So we label them as a fundamentalist. We define them as a fundamentalist with the different characteristic by looking at the characteristics of this movement. So these are the categories that we are using to understand what is really happening in the sphere of actually religion. So these are analytical categories in a sense.
Okay. Now I want to shift to the Sri Lankan context and maybe ask our panel to reflect on the fact of how do we understand religion and religious tension and religious violence in the name of religions in the Sri Lankan context. Because in a way, violence and tension seems very removed from what religion is supposed to be. Yet in recent times we have witnessed and we have also been talking a lot about religious violence and tension. How do we understand this phenomenon in the Sri Lankan context? Can I ask Anton to maybe start, and then if Nirmal and Premakumara can also try to explain how we can understand this phenomenon in the Sri Lankan context.
So when we think of this religious fundamentalism and religious extremism, they are really, as Harini pointed out, they are used, I guess, unconsciously most of the time. And writers, academics, teachers, we all have given these terms, like in the other spheres when we talk about ethnicity and all, we have produced terms, and now people are using them maybe without proper understanding about the concepts. When you think about religious fundamentals, it's in a way it's a good thing. If all the people are following exactly what the religious leaders said, then we have there would not be any conflict in the society. So that is in a way good if all the people are following what we really mean by fundamentalism. And extremism starts when they really start to hegemonize the society, when they really try to pressurize the neighbors and pressurize the others in the society to follow whatever the dominant religious groups are believing. Coming back to the question, the Sri Lankan situation, according to my research in ethnicity and all, what I see is that we have primordial loyalties to the religion that may not be exactly the religiosity, that may not be towards exactly what religious leaders said and all, but practical religions that people follow. So we have primordial, that is one of the primordial, that has become one of the primordial loyalties, like ethnicity, race, caste and all. So this has now we are living in a context where party politics dominate. So party politics, they are politicians, entrepreneurs. They are really they are using a lot of tactics to mobilize people through these primordial loyalties. And that is what happened, that is the only way, I guess, that is one of the explanation, one of the ways that we can explain Sri Lankan context.
Nirmal, how do you feel, or how do you explain this kind of religious tension that we see in Sri Lanka? Or do you, in the first place, do you think that there is religious tension in Sri Lanka?
Yeah, first we must know what we are talking about.
Yes.
Especially when you use the term, for example, fundamentalism, extremism. So you have to know exactly what you mean by them, right? This let's say I think let me start from kind of abstract level, just following up what Anton and Premakumara said, and so then move on to the specific situation in Sri Lanka. You have this, let's say, this politics and religion, right? So let's say this, again, by way of defending my, the compartmentalized conceptual categorization, let's, for the sake of, the explanation, let me, use this separate realm, the realm of religion, realm of politics, right? But there are interconnection, they are intermingled, and so then we have to ask the question as how and why religion become politicized, and at the same time how and why does politics become religized, let's say so, right? And so that is what is needed, our close scrutiny. Yes, because there are two things. When you look at the religion, as I mentioned earlier, so there's always a gap, the tension between the organized, institutionalized religion and this basic religious desire, right? So there's a space for conflict. There's a space for conflict. So then you need to organize the religious believers in order to address these tensions. So this open up a kind of, this open up a particular path towards the politics, because the conflict resolving tensions belonging to the realm of politics, right? Belonging to the realm of power. So then in order to address those issues, you need power. For example, you have to capture you have to sort of engage with those institutionalized religions, right? So in a way, it's a kind of capturing political power in ordinary means. So then all of a sudden, when you are trying to solve that issue, so you are jumping into the realm of politics by default, right? And then likewise, let's look at the realm of politics, right? So then, in politics, again, so there are tensions. I mean, by nature, it's a realm of conflict. Then you have to, again, there's a need to mobilize people. The mobilize certain agents are trying to rally people around, right? So then, how do you do that? So then, it's a matter of addressing their sentiments, right? Addressing their various needs, right? I mean, attracting people towards, what you say. And then, when you do that, the religiosity is a very sensitive area. So when you want to attract, I mean, let us look at, if you want to be attractive, if you can present yourself as someone who can provide some spiritual solution to the people, so then your attractiveness is increased, right? So then, I mean, so that's where there's a room for being sort of transform yourself into a religious figure. So that's how, look at the case of Gandhi, for example. Gandhi is partly political, partly religious.
Yes.
Right? So what I'm saying is that, that there's so there are mechanisms through which, these two realms, interconnected with each other, how do you say, the cross each other's, boundaries, right? And so that's how you have to look at, the connection between religion and, the politics. And in Sri Lanka, so this happens in, for example, 19th century. It's a wonderful moment of our recent history to understand this phenomenon, right? So on one hand, so there's a serious transformation was taking place in the realm of religion. For example, the Buddhists, there's a desire to revive Buddhism. That is what we call as revival in Buddhism. And so then, I mean, it's not a simple, the process, and there are a lot of conflict. You have to engage with dominant religion, Christianity, and so you have to engage in debates. You have various debates as Panaduravada, Panchamahavada, and all that, right? So so it's a matter of conflict, right? It's a matter of engaging in the dominant power structures, right? Both religion and the non-religion, right? And then in the realm of politics, so you have the the emerging the colonial powers, and so there are discontents, and so there are discontented elements of local indigenous elite and so on, various groups, working class, and so they are engaging with the dominant power structures, and so they also so there's a kind of historical the link between these religious revival movements and these political mobilization. And when you look at the personalities like Anagarika Dharmapala, it's a wonderful, I mean, he has been studied by many the scholars, including Gananatha Besekara, who is the by far the most the serious scholar of Anagarika Dharmapala. And so, I mean, in him, you see a very illustrative, the very important, sort of, how do they link, interconnection between the realm of politics and, so he very easily moved from religious sphere to, and actually he didn't think so, he took it as a kind of the wholeness, but I mean, so that's now actually in Sri Lanka, in the history of last 150 years or so, it's also the history of the connection between the religious